I feel that confidence is good, even in like this situation where we have to play in the promotion tournament. But it's important not to overestimate yourself and underestimate them, because unlike other years, this tournament might be closer than before because GCU and EU United have really good structure, which was something lacking before with like challenger teams. But this year, everything in the NACS, LCS, all the teams are a lot closer now. There's a lot more structure with franchising coming in, and everybody wants to get that franchise spot.
Welcome back, everyone, to game number 4 of Goldcoin United versus Phoenix1. And so far, we had a best-of-5 series with Nexus backdoors, pentakills, comebacks. But the strangest thing in this entire series may be the fact that heading into game number 4, Goldcoin United are subbing out Madlife and putting in Whyin in the support role.
This is so strange to me. I gotta agree with you, Tom, because at least in terms of gameplay, looking at it, it seemed like Madlife was doing okay. I mean, they did lose game 1 super hard, but then they had really nice setup in game 2 to get Rikara ahead. And then in game 3, it was relatively uneventful in the bot lane. They had a losing matchup once again. And it was true that Xpecial was able to roam and make things happen, but I can't remember a glaring problem out of Madlife here. So it makes you wonder, is this a performance-based thing? Well, we're not quite sure.
It could be a champion pick specific thing. We don't know because we haven't necessarily seen a lot of Whyin throughout the entire Challenger series with Goldcoin United. So this is kind of, in-house decision of what they've been practicing with the team and what they've been doing together. One of the things that the biggest question mark we kind of have, though, is the fact that Goldcoin United's method for success has been the fact that they like taking calculated fights, they like setting up vision control, and so much of that is done through Madlife and Santorin pairing up. But we have seen Phoenix1 breaking up that combination, whether it be just through brute forcing aggression on the bottom side of the map, or like in game number 3, invading upon Santorin and basically giving them a 2-level deficit for the entire early game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why, Whyin would fix that potential problem. That feels much more like a draft thing where you end up with losing lanes and things like that. Maybe that's what you were getting at, where, Madlife has been playing Braum all the time. Maybe that's all he can play right now. And they want someone who's willing to play Karma or something to contest this early game focus out of Xpecial and the side of P1.
Yeah, and while we're harping on the fact that, Goldcoin United is making this substitution, it's off the back of the fact that they won game number 3.
Right, that's even crazier.
They were able to stem the fact that P1 basically had a 1 to 2,000 gold lead for the early stages of the game, but they never got any further than that. And to the point is, Goldcoin United even had more of a tower advantage in that game, and they were able to hang tight, wait for the later stages of the game, and let Rikara and Fly kind of open up the map. Actually, Fly specifically, because he got that solo kill on Ryu.
And I'm really interested to see for P1, just to flip the conversation a little bit, where they choose to go with their draft, because game 1 and game 2 were very, very early game focused. And game 3, even though they had pushing lanes and winning lanes for the most part, they were not like snowball dominant lanes. Talia will shove everyone in, but she's not going to go around solo killing people or making crazy plays and things like that. And it's a question of, do you return to more of a snowball focus, or do you try and match GCU in the late game? Because I think you can look at GCU's late game and say it hasn't been super impressive. Even though they're winning, it's mostly due to their comps than their play. And when I say winning, I mean in terms of team fights in the late game.
And one of the things we did see was the man on your screen before, MikeYeung, was the one that they were playing around in game number 3. Whether it be the fact that his Jarvan pickup invaded extremely early on and bullied Santorin away, took 3/4 of the jungle away from the map of Summoner's Rift. He kept Santorin at that 2-level deficit. You mentioned before, a lot of the early game advantage, that 600 to 700 gold advantage they got in the lane phase, was MikeYeung over Santorin. Much like we saw when he came in and was playing Nidalee, when he came in and was playing Lee Sin, but on the Jarvan, they couldn't transition MikeYeung's gold lead into P1's gold lead.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the problem was in the most recent weeks, is when you're playing a Sejuani or a Maokai or these other kind of tank champions that have come back into the meta, that's not a great play style for them. They can't punish when they invade. They can, at best, force you off a camp, and that's about it. They can't get solo kills. They can't pressure you out of your jungle completely and then make good map plays on whatever side that you have this man advantage on now. So when they end up with the Jarvan in that same way, it's pretty much the same thing, where it's a situation that's very hard to pressure that advantage. So they might just end up going for more of a late game focus.
I mean, that would be something that P1 hasn't necessarily done so much so far in this entire series. Is we've seen them kind of pretty much go for the early game advantages, get an early game composition. In the late game, their win condition was a Ryu backdoor on Corki, which could potentially be something that we see taken away again by Goldcoin United, as Fly had a pretty decent Corki in that last game. But more importantly, the fact of the matter was Ryu didn't have it.
That felt like a pretty big factor, all things considered. I think Ryu's Talia game wasn't bad by any means. He was able to make some nice plays with his roams and walls and stuff like that. But the Corki pick was something that's more of his bread and butter. And here you see GCU do not want to risk giving that one away. It's one of those times where we talk about in best of fives, mini metas kind of evolving. And the fact that GCU has now shown some priority on the Corki pick, but not enough to first pick it is what they're kind of telegraphing here. So they're saying, we don't want you to first rotation it because we don't want to use it on our first pick, but we believe you think it's that important. So I just love this part of best of fives where you start getting into these kinds of questions of how high on priority list is Corki for both these teams.
And we'll have to see as the double bans against Santorin, the Sejuani and the Maokai, his two most played junglers in recent recent patches, have been banned away. We'll have to wait and see what the last ban is. Caitlyn and Kalista have been highly prioritized as bans, and Caitlyn once again being banned out here by GCU. We'll see if Kalista is the last ban overall, and it is.
So both of those big AD carries taken away again, but this time around, GCU does not go for the Tristana first pick. They actually go for the Thresh first pick in a game after Madlife gets subbed out. Tom, I don't know what's going on.
They put Whyin in. Whyan's going to play Thresh, I guess, but that also leaves open the Elise for MikeYeung to take again. They won on game 2 when he was playing that, despite him not being the most effective early game jungler. We'll have to wait and see now. Does P1 still prioritize the Varus? Do they take the Tristana away? MikeYeung is currently hovering the Tristana, but doesn't 100% guarantee it. I mean, there's still the Jarvan, which has seen a huge priority. They could take that away from Santorin again here and potentially put that on Zig in the top lane, or in MikeYeung's already got his jungler.
We're not sure 100% if that J4 pick's going to be more important. I don't mind the Tristana pick, even though it is a hyper late game scaling champion and all that. It does still have playmaking in the early game. It can win lanes. We saw in game 2 how aggressive GCU was able to play with that when they first picked it, and were able to convert a lot of plays with it. Here, Phoenix1 going to be looking to do that. And like you said, that Jarvan priority is still going to be pretty high up for both teams. Goldcoin United going to grab that one away. Works extremely well with both champions here that we just see locked in for GCU. On the bot side, the Lantern ganks that come in with a J4 can be terrifying. And then in the late game, a great ball delivery system for the Orianna.
We'll see now Goldcoin United have the makings for, yet again, another superior teamfight composition with a bunch of pick potential and protection for whatever carry they decide to choose. Kog'Maw could potentially still be on the table for Goldcoin United in the second phase of picks, and that scales even better than the Tristana does in the late game. But we see P1 doubling down on the double marksman composition. They're going to go for Lucian in the mid lane now that the Corki's removed from the equation.
All right, I'm down with this. We were wondering which direction P1 was going to go with their team comp. They are going the more aggressive early game. They take the Elise again, and then with the Corki banned out, they return to a different marksman. Has a better matchup into Orianna, actually. Has a really great ability to push her in and punish her in the 1v1. You're just going to coordinate between MikeYeung and Ryu to make sure that you get the dives off correctly. You can have some really brutal timings where you ding 6, Orianna's still 5, you push a wave in and punish her before she can hit 6 and get access to her ultimate. You can see some really crazy dives like that with P1's mid-jungle.
And we'll see now what happens in the second pick phase. P1 has already kind of structured themselves, as you mentioned, with the Tristana pickup for a stronger late game than they've had pretty much in any of these games of this series so far. Whereas Goldcoin United are setting themselves up for a superior teamfight comp, but P1 are identifying some very major threats. They don't want the Gnar Jarvan combination. The Narvan's been taken away, and more importantly, the Kog'Maw's been removed from the table here, which is the champion that Rikara was on when they won the Challenger Series finals in a very similar comp.
Yeah, I like this ban of the Kog'Maw. You know GCU likes playing late game. Kog'Maw is the best late game pick available. We've seen other things in the LCS. We've seen a Jinx. There are other late game options, but Kog'Maw after Tristana is the best in the current meta. So with that taken out, what will GCU go with here? There's also, with the Kalista Caitlyn banned out, with that Kog'Maw, Tristana already picked, you're getting forced down pretty far on the list here.
I mean, Twitch has been something we've seen a little bit here, as we see now Phoenix1 could be going for something in the support role to counter. The Morgana was hovered, but it looks like the Taric was banned away from Madlife specifically, going to be picked up.
Yeah, I was about to say, Taric has been something that's been banned a fair amount in this series in the second ban phase. Gets through this time around. The Twitch pick, like you said, I think it makes some sense against GCU's comp. You have to worry about, are your lanes too weak? Are you giving up too much pressure in the early game? If you take something like that, you have almost no power points on the map. You do have some playmaking, of course. The Sivir is going to be the lock-in instead. Not too bad of a matchup for it at all, actually, and so I like this pick.
Yeah, so the Sivir into Tristana. Of course, you have the spell shield to block out the explosive charge damage. So that's kind of been a go-to, not necessarily counter pickup, but a good matchup into the Tristana. And the last pick overall, will this be Santorin in the jungle Jarvan again? And it will be Shen locked in for top lane for solo. So they don't necessarily have 3 beefy tanks. They kind of have 2.5 with a Thresh for initiation. But they have the Stand United now to protect the Sivir or the Orianna in these team fights.
And once again, a complete team fight focused team comp here out of GCU. They do have some early game playmaking, like we said, with the Thresh Jarvan. Shen at 6 can also combo in there. And then late game, you have a ton of engage potential. As we see the Kled being the last pick there for Zig. Going to be able to take that same matchup as last time on red side for him. In a game where, all things considered, he didn't have a fantastic performance. He was fine, but it was mostly, once again, down to some late game skirmishing that went P1's way.
Yeah, so both of these teams, I'm kind of excited now, because one of the things that we were harping on GCU for in game number 1 is, when were they going to go for a fight? It was 2 kills to 1 for like 25 minutes in, and there was a Baron that went down in favor of P1, and if they had just engaged a fight, they might have been able to come out ahead in that one. I mean, that was the one that they had to backdoor from P1's side in order to win, because they were able to win that late game team fight kind of style. But now they have the Sivir. They're going to run at you. The opposite side, P1, they were already trying to run at you. Now they have a Kled. They're going to run at you. This could potentially be a very, very aggressive game from both sides.
Potentially, and of course, the big question mark heading into this game is Whyin. How is he going to do here? It's quite the debut performance here. I mean, didn't play at all during the regular season, didn't play during playoffs. Now in a very tense game, elimination game. Well, not elimination game, but going to knock you into the lower bracket if you lose. It's got to be a tough situation to play in here for the rookie.
Yeah, I mean, already 2 games to 1. This is still technically match point for Phoenix1, so you're being subbed in a situation like this. You've come out of the scouting grounds, you've had a couple of Challenger Series games under your belt, but now you're on the big stage here in the North American LCS final promotion tournament. You still have to win another game after this if you're GCU United, if you want to move on to tomorrow's winning side matchup. Game number 4 here for P1 could be all they need to seal the deal and move on to that matchup themselves on Saturday.
Once again, MikeYeung on this Elise pick will probably be the focus of the early game. The other focus this whole time has been the bot lane, but that was more for Rikara versus Arrow. Now, with Whyin in there, another reason to focus down on exactly what's going to happen in this bot lane.
And I also want to see how the Taric gets played out this time around, because the Lulu had been something that Xpecial was playing for a very long, or for the past 2 games, and he was going for the Ardent Sensor Rush, and he was making sure that Varus pretty much had like the sustain and the extra damage as quickly as possible, and forewent that Sightstone, and they played safe in game 3 while they built that one up. Taric doesn't necessarily build the Ardent Sensor nearly as fast, goes for a little bit more of a tanky style of build, and you would think that when you have the later game hyper carry the Tristana, that'd be a way that you want to play, but the Taric pickup a little bit more impactful into the Thresh as well. Thresh hooks you, you end up charging the Dazzle Stun, you can stun 1 or 2 people, and you completely turn that trade around.
It is overall a bit of a strange comp for me out of P1 though, because Kled and Taric mostly focus on like engaging in team fights in the late game, and then you have the Elise Lucian core of the early game, and it's one of those ones where you can kind of see it working, where you snowball early game through mid jungle synergy, and then late game you have the tools to still fight. But it doesn't have many inherent synergies that you might see with some other team comps.
We'll see once again if the junglers have as much focus as they did in game number 3. It was pretty much the MikeYeung versus Santorin show in that game, where even though MikeYeung came out ahead, it was GCU that took victory. And MikeYeung's Elise performance in game number 2, while P1 still got the win, left a couple of question marks in our minds, mainly for the fact that he didn't put out a lot of early game aggression. And if your game plan for the early game is mid-jungle synergy gets Lucian ahead and carries you into the later stage where Tristana takes over, you gotta ask questions. Where's MikeYeung gonna go?
Feels like it's season 2, both junglers starting blue buff. When's the last time? It doesn't happen that often anymore.
Not really. Specifically around the fact that you can get, like the super leash on the bottom side of the map, blue side, you want it taking a red buff and then going across the map, but this is maybe a shifting of their own jungle priority of like, hey, we're gonna be starting on different sides of the map. I mean, MikeYeung invaded super heavy last time around, so.
Right, and it's one of the things as well with the Jarvan pick. I can understand you just want to go like get both your buffs off the map and go make a play or something, but it's still a little surprising to see overall, and it's one of the things that GCU hasn't done a lot of really aggressive jungle pathing. into like early ganks. So I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more out of them when they are on blue side and things like that.
We saw the GCU had the fans vote to think who's going to win this game and potentially this series. They still have a bit of an uphill battle to do so. Maybe that's why they brought Whyin in. You know, the synergy of Whyin and Rikara, we haven't necessarily seen it in-game, but out of game, heck of a dancing duo together.
For people who don't know, there was a music video released that Tom is referencing. And as much as the out-of-game synergy is great, I am much more concerned about the in-game synergy. I have a feeling that MadLife probably got the bulk of scrim time heading into these matches. So without, you know, any official word on what caused the swap, it's a little hard to know. Maybe MadLife got sick. Maybe MadLife started thinking he was struggling and he couldn't perform at the level that was needed. Maybe they did it for champ pool reasons. It's really hard to know.
Well, very interesting. It's like you mentioned already during Champs, like they first picked the Thresh as soon as MadLife is out of the game. So now Whyan's got an extra bit of weight on his shoulders as well because he's coming in replacing a big name on this roster. And the Challenger Series has been full of kind of, you know, these rookies and up-and-coming North American players going toe-to-toe against some of the long-standing members of, you know, the NA, EU, and LCK, pretty much professional leagues. I mean, we have the story from EU United who are on the second stream who now have the core of now 3 sophomore players from the NACS. Now you have Rikara and Whyin, you know, kind of 2 new fresh faces. Rikara had a couple of games on Nova, but it's pretty much a rookie at this point in time, whereas Whyin, this is, you know, the first time we've seen him pretty much in scouting ground. Ooh. Zig actually going to be able to flash away from that as well. Gets the remount. He's going to joust in on to Solo. Misses the bear trap on the rope, though. MikeYeung is here for counter gank, so Santorin tried to get aggressive early on, was not able to land the knockup combo.
Bit of a sloppy / unfortunate gank up there in the top side. Right as Solo lands the taunt, Zig actually uses his shotgun to knock himself back out of the follow-up CC that was coming in from Jarvan's EQ combo. Then when he gets the remount, misses the bear trap on a rope, so Mike can't potentially follow. It would have been a little risky either way because he's still fighting at a health deficit, but Kled's known to be a little slippery, and he might have been able to win that if they actually managed to get that bear trap on a rope to land.
Meanwhile, there's aggression on the top side, but on the bottom side of the map, it's GCU who are shoving up against P1 this time around. May just be a symptom of the Tristana in the earlier stages of the game, as now the CS difference a little bit in favor of Rikara, but not necessarily as monumental as it has been in some of these previous matches.
And the Lucian pick to me is an interesting one for 2 reasons. One, because we already talked about, it's Lucian into Orianna, and P1's going for this aggressive early game style, but Ryu is not a necessarily aggressive player. He's not lane dominant for the most part. He's a lot more about going even and making plays, and that's what Corki and Talia are great for, whereas on the Lucian pick, you kind of need to smash the Orianna. Eventually, there's some power spikes in this matchup that Orianna's actually not too upset being in. And if you're not ahead on the Lucian, those can come at pretty bad timing. So I think it's one of the things where it's a decent pick for the game plan, but maybe not a decent pick for the player. We'll have to see.
Well, we'll see if Ryu is going to be a little bit more lane dominant in this game, or if he's going to have to try to transition advantages in the later stages, you know, when he starts affecting the side lane to make up for some of those objective fights like he had been doing on the Corki. Of course, you know, you don't have the same kind of split push threat on the Lucian as well. You don't necessarily have a package you go pick up and just immediately gap close in here. You see Ryu getting a bit aggressive against Fly. Fly has a cleanse available, but Ryu has taken the Ignite in this matchup, so already kind of buying into the fact he knows he needs to be a little bit more aggressive, but he's still at a CS deficit about 4.
And that's one of the nice things about the Elise that forces that cleanse take. Usually, I mean, it doesn't, maybe not forced, because usually it's forced when you have 2 CCs between like a Syndra and Elise, and then it's like, oh god, you need that cleanse. Lucian not having any CC means maybe you could have gone with something else, but maybe Fly is confident in his ability to lane 1v1 versus Ryu, and it's just he has to be concerned about the Elise, and that's why he takes the cleanse.
You see on the bottom side of the map, it's Xpecial decides to go back first, picks up a Sight Stone for himself, and leaves Arrow content to sit under his tower and farm away on Tristana, but now MikeYeung gonna walk in, find Santorin in the jungle, has to land the Cocoon. Not a lot of mana, but he's able to repel away from the Flag and Drag combo, and Santorin can't continue to fight once that's gone.
Man, somewhat luckily for MikeYeung, Fly was in the middle of a recall there. Ryu was back in base, so no mid laners to kind of come in and bring some of the damage that is needed to find a kill there. And the game is dead even, 7 minutes into the game. First time we can say that.
Yeah, one of these teams has always had some early game laning advantages, whether it was the fact that P1 were smashing bottom lane, or MikeYeung was aggressively invading Santorin's jungle, or Solo was having CS advantages over Zig and Shen versus matchups that Shen shouldn't have CS advantages in, pretty much. We'll have to wait and see, though, where the first action actually happens. MikeYeung goes for this blue buff invade, has to flash away. Santorin is doing a really good job of making sure that Elise, the only camp I can remember MikeYeung taking away so far this game was that Raptor camp on the bottom side, but Santorin pretty much is shutting the door on his own jungle.
There's Whyinn's first big play. Lantern's fly. No, sorry. He's been fine in the bot lane. They actually have a CS advantage, which is pretty nice. Like I was saying, the Sivir and Tristana is not a bad matchup at all, and especially the Taric as well. The only thing you need to be worried about is that stun, and it's such a telegraphed ability. You can spell shield that very easily. Same with the explosive charge that you can put on you. So it's not at all a bad matchup here. And you see early on, Rikara has a nice CS lead.
Yeah, so already advantages for the Sivir, who will, not necessarily known as much of a later game carry as like the Tristanas of the world are, but still, when you want to get stacking up an Infinity Edge, you get those ricochet crits in the later stages of the game, really effective against your big beefy front lines. There's not a big beefy front line from P1, so it's even more effective to get those ricochet crits on some lower HP targets, specifically the double marksman composition. So if Sivir is going to have a big beefy front line to stand behind, the later game threat is still there from GCU, and we already mentioned the team fight power they have as Ryu gets aggressive, dashes forward, builds quarter cutlasses aggressively.
Not bad. This is one of the things we were saying where if the Orianna's going even, your Elise loses her flash, and you're on GCU's comp, once again, you're saying, all right, well, this is probably going to outscale in the late game. But what we were saying this time around that's slightly different is with that Taric pick, a lot stronger of a late game champion, you can potentially find some really big plays where you might get the ultimate off at the perfect time to cancel out an Orianna ultimate. Right. And when you have Taric, you always have that kind of massive team fight potential where you just neutralize so much damage that you still win the fight.
Right, you are the anti-team fight in that sense, where you have the Cosmic Radiance to stop at the right point in time, put like a pause button on the team fight wherever you would want to. As Solo going toe-to-toe, uses the Spirit's Refuge there to dodge out on some extra shotgun damage coming out from Kled. And Zig trying to remount himself up in that top lane. MikeYeung now might be the one that has the enemy jungler knocking at his door. Arrow's actually going to walk up here as well, and Santorin's not able to steal that blue buff away. MikeYeung will get it for himself and get that control ward, but Fly is positioned aggressively in the mid lane against Ryu at the same time. And
this is one of the times where we're talking about power spikes that can come in that work well for an Orianna if things are even. You have your arm guard, which is great. Even better, you have blue buff and they don't, so you can kind of spam the wave pretty aggressively here, and it'll have a hard time punishing. Also, with Elise, no flash available for a flash unit, as well as the fact that cleanses up. This is going to be some more time for Orianna to play relatively freely in the lane.
So we have another pretty docile early game coming out in this series. As much as we saw P1 aggressively come out swinging in game number 1, where first blood still only happened about 10 minutes in, but they were able to get laning advantages and completely smash the bottom side of the map. Or game number 3, where they were cutting down Santorin in the jungle and aggressively pushing advantages that way. This game has yet to result in any sort of kills, or there's the top flash burn from Zig and the flash burn from MikeYeung, but other than that, just kind of taking it slow and steady at this point. If you're GCU, you lose this game, you wind up having to move on to Saturday's matchup where you're on the elimination match of the promotion tournament. And if you're P1, you're just 1 win away from, securing, you get 2 wins in the promotion tournament, you're promoted into the LCS again. So they just want to keep this one slow and steady and at their pace because they now have the scaling late game carry as well.
The other thing that'd be pretty interesting is if GCU does make it back into that promotion match tomorrow. Hold on, big play being forced in the mid lane. The Lantern out right away, though. Perfect timing by Whyin to disengage from that brute force attempt in the mid lane.
I guess that's why he's
shoots him out of there, yeah.
Yeah, saves him. So the charge ultimate coming out from Kled was ineffective, and P1 trying to make, kind of the first aggressive play from their side of the map doesn't wind up resulting in what they wanted. But it is focused down on that mid lane matchup where we said that Rio needed to get some sort of advantage. But I mean, we're 12 minutes into the game at this point. Lane phase is generally, somewhat over around the 15-minute mark when people start contesting dragons and rotating around the map for additional outer towers. And at this point in time, things once again dead even.
Very scary for the side of P1 here. MikeYeung, no advantages. P1 really no advantages around the map. And it's the kind of thing where eventually, GCU can kind of scale forever. They do still have to be a little bit concerned because, like you said, they have the Tristana this time on P1 side, something that they haven't really had at all this series. And Arrow has been playing pretty well, all things considered. No major mistakes out of him. Has had some decent team fights and some good laning phases. So now with a better scaling champion, you might see him able to take over this game in the late game, something he hasn't really had the opportunity to do so far.
One of the things that, I mean, we've been saying, like, they subbed in Whyin, you know, been kind of, you know, questioning why they would do so. One of the things that Mad Life was very good at is keeping control over the jungle and the bottom side area. Santorin's doing a really good job of shutting the door on MikeYeung's invading attempt, but the jungle or the river area has not necessarily been as warded on the bottom side, which lets P1 on a nice back timing here. They catch out GCU's bottom lane. They go in and they take that first Ocean Drake of the game. So while they aren't able to capitalize on the mid lane play or get the Lucian ahead or pick up any kills whatsoever, they do get the first objective in the game. So it's a small victory.
Small victory. I would, you know, not want to criticize Whyin too much for that one, just because that had happened previously with GCU. Times where P1 was able to get a dragon that maybe they shouldn't have been able to, given the fact that GCU was winning. Here we see Zig in a bit of a precarious position, maybe.
You know, we saw Santorin starting up the Rift Herald, but going over the wall, and actually P1's rotated their bottom side of the map up here, so Arrow is waiting back at the tower. MikeYeung is waiting to take away his red buff, and Santorin's actually gone back towards that Rift Herald, so there could be something happening, whether it be GCU force or P1 force, since there's a lot of members from both teams up in this area. If GCU goes for an aggressive play here with Solo, they could wind up getting jumped on here, as they still have not seen P1's bottom lane. Oh, now they have! Surprise! Arrow's out of the brush, throws the explosive charge, and runs away.
You get to see there, not much happening after that lane swap setup. Rift Herald unable to be focused down as well. GCU sniffed this play out. Whyin already up on the top side as Rikara rotates his way up there. No one down the bot lane currently. With the dragon going down, it is slightly telegraphed. There is literally no reason to put your bot lane bottom at that point. The turrets no longer have the extra fortification this late into the game, so understandably both bot lanes make their way up to the top side, where the major objective is now this Rift Herald.
And see P1 potentially being the ones to aggress on, although it looks like Arrow's just clearing out a couple of wards. And now both of these duo lanes on the top side of the map means that P1's rotated Kled down to the bottom side. Bit of Australia lane setup now, and this game it's been so different compared to the rest of the games in this series, just based off the fact that everybody seems content to just kind of extend this laning phase. I mean, for GoldCoin United, this is going to very benefit you. It's actually now Ryu's the one that gets aggressive here. Culling is being charged, the flash away from Fly. Stand United even gets used, and MikeYeung was coming up on the opposite side. Ryu wants this kill, though, and they will get first blood. Goes over to the Elise. The Cataclysm is used as well as the charge, and MikeYeung stays alive. Santorin now goes down to Ryu, who's opened up this game after going aggressive in the mid lane. I guess all I have to do is ask for action, and it just so happens to come.
And there we go. Ryu starts that one off very well, gets the slowdown from the Blade of the Rune King, which sets up his culling to make sure it gets a lot of damage out. Fly flashes away. One of the times where that cleanse is pretty useless, honestly. He's not able to get out of there or find a time to use it. Santorin came in to try and support him with the Shen. Kind of got trolled a little bit by the Raptors getting in his way, making that pathing a little difficult. And then they get locked down and killed off as Xpecial was ahead on that roam play, able to follow up with a little bit more CC. A quick 2 kills there for P1. They grabbed that 2,000 gold advantage, and now they're going to be able to try and grab some objectives as well up on the top side.
So now, game number 3, it was Fly picking up a solo kill on Ryu that kind of opened up and woke GCU up and took the control of the game in that one. Now this time around, it's Ryu making a very aggressive play, with some help from his jungler, MikeYeung, and the rest of his team as they collapse into the enemy jungle. That gets P1 the advantage here.
Now you see the dash in, the slow, sets up the culling. Fly's trying to run away, gets culled super quickly, and then he gets an auto attack thrown in there because he doesn't expect Raptors to be where he's clicking. A nice ult to pull him on top, but they're not actually able to get the trade kill back. And then here's the stun from Xpecial, continues to keep Santorin locked up so he can't break the wall down or flash out or anything. And now Ryu double buffed up. It's going to be a pretty dangerous time for Fly in the mid lane with no flash available.
Now he's putting on the bully pants in the mid lane here, and P1 are still positioning aggressively around the Rift Herald. Well, all these kind of lane swap shenanigans now have resulted in the fact that GCU's duo combination of Rikara and Whyin have gotten about a 30 CS advantage over Arrow and Xpecial. There's no dragon on the map for about a minute and a half, so we may see this top lane priority still going down in favor of both of these teams, but looks like P1 had the push advantage. We saw after that fight in the mid lane that Arrow and Xpecial got basically 3 hits on this top lane tower, and that one's almost about to go down, and that will be the first tower gold of the game going over as well.
Doesn't look like they want to let that one go, though. They're going to aggress onto Arrow. A nice ult out of Xpecial to keep them alive.
Yeah, Cosmic Radiance comes in, Xpecial stays alive, and MikeYeung's actually going to join the fray as well. Whyin lays down the box. They have to back away, but Ryu's rotating up from the mid lane. Might be potentially getting sandwiched here as though Fly's following him from there, but he's just able to walk back over the Scuttle Crab, which actually belongs to GCU, and able to be A-okay.
And with pressure in both the top and mid lane currently, this is a fine time to not go over aggressive with P1's comp. You want that first Tiracle. You don't want to risk giving up some kills. So they're able to disengage that. A really nice double stun out of Xpecial as well to dissuade that engage. And then they're going to be able to finish the turret off most likely. Actually, MikeYeung gets caught.
MikeYeung gets caught. He repels up and stays alive. The Cataclysm comes out from Santorin, but the exhaust will keep MikeYeung alive for a little bit longer. Now the reset's coming from Arrow. He flashes forward aggressively, launches himself forward, but the Blast Cone saves Santorin, but Ryu's coming in, culls him down. Another kill goes over to P1.
A 2-for-1 there, MikeYeung. Usually it's the team with the turret low that baits the enemy into trying to stay around too long and they get killed. This time MikeYeung baits GCU into thinking they can punish them going for that turret, and actually they lose 2 kills for it as once again Ryu with that mid lane pressure first on the roam.
And as you saw, P1 were just waiting to get this tower down, and MikeYeung got hooked in, but the repel right there is, like you said, baits Santorin into this one.
Yeah, and there you see Arrow finish off that turret. He's able to get Whyin first, continue on to Santorin. A little bit over-aggressive with that jump. You can just wait a second longer, but he knows Ryu's coming in to follow up. A nice, straight, easy culling there for Ryu. No flash available, no way for Santorin to get out of that one. And MikeYeung playing a little bit of the bait. I'm just a little spider in front of your turret. I'm so easy to be killed.
It's a trapdoor spider, that's what it is. Sprung the trap onto GCU. As now they've rotated Arrow down to the bottom side of the map. The Tristana's picked up a kill and an assist in that fray. This now has a static shiv and pieces for an Infinity Edge, whereas it's an Essence Reaver and an additional BF sword as Rikara's pretty much skipping the Zeal item at this point in time and going for the Infinity Edge to get those crits online as early as possible.
Infernal Dragon up again. Bot lane's making their way down to the bot as the objectives flip around. Rift Herald still up 1940 into the game. Most likely not going to see that one taken this time around.
Not quite. See on the top side of the map, both these teleports are available, and the Stand United is available for solo Shen as well, so both of them could join the fray at a moment's notice. As now P1 are still kind of potentially positioning around the Infernal Dragon. They can't rush it down like you said, so this won't be P1 just brute forcing another objective. They need to get something kind of in preparation for this, whether it be a pick-off or a lane shoving at some sort of advantage. P1 need to have something in their control before they could go for this objective.
Well, they do have pressure at the very least. Xpecial gets a little low, comes out. Dragon started off by MikeYeung. They're going to pull this one out away from the wall and just brute force it down.
You see Ryu on the backside of this fight. Gets some damage on the fly. MikeYeung is going to flash over. Baits out the command shockwave there with a repel, but he's going to wind up baiting himself into death though as the rest of GCU just collapsed. The Infernal Drake was started, but the trap this time was sprung on MikeYeung.
That was a little bit of spaghetti there out of MikeYeung. I believe he did not need to play it that way. He flashed over the wall, got some damage in, and then repelled. Santorin was over the wall. Might have been able to land on Santorin to get out of there. Doesn't end up doing it. Instead drops back down and gets killed now that he has no flash available. Probably could have just repelled over to start it and save his flash. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, so now MikeYeung, with his death, gives the Infernal Drake over to Goldcoin United. So P1, they got an Ocean Drake for themselves, but they lost out on the Infernal Drake, which is going to be a lot of damage, which Sivir and Orianna are going to absolutely love having.
And yeah, this is one of those situations where, once again, P1 in the lead, great. They're starting to get control of this game, and whenever that seems to happen, they make a mistake. They let it slip away a little bit. Instead of getting this Infernal Dragon, now GCU has it. They give a kill back. There's still all the turrets left up, so any one of these team fights not only will be pretty big in terms of kill score, but it'll also allow people to start snowballing through objectives. They'll be able to grab a bunch of turrets on the back end of a fight. And, you know, if that's how the game's going to go, having the Infernal Dragon is pretty important.
It definitely is, and we saw just beforehand that P1, when they have a lead at 20 minutes, they usually can close out the game. I believe it was a 12-5 record. That, of course, speaks to the fact that P1 oftentimes doesn't even have these advantages at 20 minutes as well. If you think about it, they played about 40-something games in the NALCS, and 17 of them they had advantages. So when they do have advantages, sometimes they do slip away, but because they're not often playing from this position, then they might be trying to do something a little bit desperate, though. They're starting up on this Baron. MikeYeung extremely low, and Santorin sniffs it out.
Doesn't actually go for the punish. He had flag and drag plus ult available. Could have got on top of MikeYeung. They should know his flash is still down, but they chose not to force that fight. Just gonna take that health advantage, continue trying to push. We're talking about AD carries down the bot lane. It's a little scary for Rikara to be down there pushing right now, but with MikeYeung getting chunked out and forced out of there, unlikely that they try and force that Baron again.
There's no big dedicated tank from P1 too, so they need to have as many damage dealers as possible to kind of rush down that Baron, but knowing that at least somebody was, like Zig was showing on the map, content to just kind of force them away from that Baron buff attempt. But now, once again, P1 has kind of set up this interesting situation where Ryu is now going to be dealing with a split push on the bottom. We have Zig split pushing on the top, and then the core of 3 around the mid lane. Once again, Arrow kind of being the one to defend against waves pushing it.
Very curious lane setup, to say the least. Both no TP mid laners in the bot lane with Baron up and no Dragon available. A very strange 1-1-3-1 here. It's not too bad for Ryu because in the side lane, Lucian will be pretty happy, but not great for Orianna. And just overall a little surprising to see when your teleporters are available, but they're just stuck up on the top side here. So P1 probably would want to flip that at some point soon, but for now, pretty happy with it.
Oh, most of the tower is still pretty healthy from the side of GCU too, and despite there being a little bit more of an increase in the action, there's still only 1 tower that's gone down and 2 dragons that have fallen the entire game. So P1 find themselves still at about a 2,500 gold advantage, but this is the same point where GCU was kind of keeping them at an arm's length in game number 3 when they were able to come back into the game, you know, after the 25-minute mark. And that point in time is rapidly approaching, and P1 don't seem to really be, you know, kicking it into high gear right now. No,
they don't. And what kind of was the catalyst in game 3 was the solo kill that Fly had onto Ryu. This time around, not as easy of a matchup to find that, but there probably needs to be one small outplay to really kickstart this one, because it does feel like both teams are struggling to get good vision control and really force some objectives down in a straight 5v5 situation.
Well, we see double Ruby Sightstone picked up for the supports, so they're going to be putting as many wards as possible down. Actually, a Talisman of Ascension picked up for Xpecial's Taric, so aiding in the fact that everybody wants to either run away or run towards each other. I'm going to be adding an additional speed boost item there. We have the Infinity Edge now finished by Arrow's Tristana, so his crits are going to be packing quite a punch. We have a BF Sword and a Zeal, however, picked up by Rikara, so we already see the bouncing crits coming in from Sivir, able to easily wait.
And a nice small rotation up to the top side there by GCU. They sent some pressure with the Thresh and Jarvan making their way up there. Zig respects it and backs off, allowing Soul to find a lot of time on that turret. And Xpecial doesn't even care, doesn't even look to auto-attack Solo, just lets him scoot right by him, get to that Lantern, get out of there. But GCU making some decent plays on the map to start getting turrets down low, still looking for their first of the game.
GCU at this point in time have just been able to stop what Phoenix1 wants to do. You mentioned that Phoenix1 has, throughout, you know, their play style, the NALCS, has been, they want to go for like these 1-3-1 split pushes. They want to kind of, you know, break apart the map, and they don't necessarily want a full-on 5-and-5 fight. They want to be able to try to catch somebody out of position and utilize, you know, the speed boost, utilize the Kled charge, utilize now the Talisman of Ascension coming out from Taric to kind of catch you when you're least expecting it. But GoldCoin United are content to stall these games out and make them last longer. That was their play style in the Challenger Series. And if P1 aren't going to be able to find, you know, the catalyst they need, because their pick potential pretty much at this point is an Elise Cocoon or a Taric Dazzle. And those are both extremely difficult to do when you have somebody wave killing under their tower.
True, but one of the things Kled actually does fairly well in the late game is kind of dive backlines. So you could see a situation where you don't have great pick potential, but if you get to a location first, you set up some vision control, GCU has to walk in, maybe Zig can find a really nice teleport flank, and then he can get onto the Orianna and really split up GCU's battle lines a lot. The problem is there's a Shen, so it's like the Orianna has a lot of shielding available. It's going to make it very hard for Zig to get anything done.
Ryu going to get jumped on by Santorin. He's going to be met up with Fly as well. Ryu just tries to get back to his tower. Does not have a lot of HP, but will keep him alive. And GCU refocus and decide that they might be going for that top lane tower. Now there's pings of assist speed down in the mid lane here, because P1 are rotating to try to hit that mid lane tower in exchange. Yep,
nice counter pressure here out of P1. You see multiple members up in the top side. You start working down around this mid lane. GCU, for the most part, look like they're going to be in range to stop this push from completely coming in, but not before taking a big chunk out of the turret and Rikara.
Static Shiv, Infinity Edge, crits coming through for Arrow and chunk Rikara down to just below half HP. Ryu, in the meantime, has come back and casually life stolen off this red buff, which will give him additional HP regeneration, so he'll be fit to fray in just a little bit. Zeal's been picked up there by the Lucian as well, so he's already gotten himself about 2.5 items. Whereas his counterpart, the Orianna, already does have a Zanya's Hourglass available, so he completed that full item. and has it available for teamfight usage to try to bait something out from the side of P1. At the same exact time, though, MikeYeung says, I'm no help wave clear, and I'm no help trying to do anything right now. I'm just going to solo down this Ocean Dragon, the second one for P1.
GCU wants the brute force to play up on the top side. Nice hook!
Ooh, Whyin hooks over the wall. They catch down onto Ryu, and they immediately take him down.
He flash hooked into that, I believe. You see his flash on cooldown. Whyin showing why he's getting the start right there. A huge play picks the mid laner for P1, which enables GCU to start this Baron off.
Oh, but the teleport's coming in from Zig's Kled. It will be completed, but he immediately flashes out from the flag and drag, so they're content to just let GCU take some Baron damage, but GCU, they're content to go back on this one. Still about 10,000 HP. The charge and the talisman are available for the side of P1. Let's see if they want to try to contest this fight. It's 4v5, but there's Baron damage down on GoldCoin. Yet a taunt lands in. The Cosmic Radiance comes out. It's going to keep MikeYeung alive as he repels down through and then pick up a kill on Santorin, but 2 kills come out. The shockwave lands onto Zig as Xpecial has to flash away. GoldCoin United have found a fight. They've dismounted Zig from Skarl. They've picked up Xpecial on the other side. That's a fight won for GCU.
A 4-for-1. Santorin's the only one to drop down. A nice engage onto MikeYeung, chunks him out very early on, and then he's actually repelled in the air to keep himself alive while the Xpecial ultimate comes down, so he actually does not receive the Cosmic Radiance, gets picked up soon after that, and then they're just missing too much damage. Their mid laner's not there, so they're not actually able to win that fight. Ryu trying to get something in there.
Sivir's able to pick up the Baron. They get a kill down on the solo, but soon after, Ryu falls.
A good attempt, I guess, out of Ryu. The game is already kind of turning sour, so he tries to find some clean kills. Maybe in some miracle world he steals the Baron, but we'll take another look at this. You see the repel go up. MikeYeung not actually invulnerable during that, so he drops soon after. And then there's just no Ryu to take advantage of that Cosmic Radiance to keep himself alive, to pump out a lot of damage, because if he's able to run wild with invulnerability on him, I mean, that's so huge for a Lucian who's a short-range champion, but he was not available in that fight, and it's very easy for GCU to win when one of the main damage dealers is down in a team comp that doesn't even team fight that well late game.
Starts off with a pick on the Ryu and ends with a pick on the Ryu. So a Baron buffed up GoldCoin United now. At least 3 members have the Baron buff, because we did see Santorin dying in that fight beforehand. We'll be utilizing this Baron power play. We'll have to see if they're able to, now that they've gotten the gold lead away from Phoenix1, they're able to try to seal the deal with this Baron buff, or at least take as many towers as possible, because they had 0 before that, and now they got 2.
And they're not out of the woods yet, to be fair. I mean, P1 has found a way to steal away a couple of these games when it felt like they were firmly under GCU's control. So GCU still have some work to do here. They're, once again, positioned very well to take this game. But hold on, Ryu trying to make a play in the mid lane with his team.
There's a lot of things going on all over the map. Towers are going down everywhere. Cosmic Radiance completely negates that command shockwave as Whyin winds up going down. Spirit's Refuge will keep Solo alive for a little bit of time. He's going to get a shield from Fly, but he winds up going down as well. So now Rikara is rotating over from the bottom side. The Cataclysms use their traffic special in, but he's just wailing away while the rest of his team is actually just safe behind the wall, but Fly is able to pick up a kill onto Xpecial, so they go 2-for-1 overall.
And there's some of that aggressive playmaking P1's comp is capable of. Just wondering where that was before. There were a lot of times where both teams were kind of just spread out. Wouldn't have minded seeing that a little bit earlier on. But, I mean, it's really good identification of where the resources were on the map. It was Whyin and Solo in the mid lane of all things for some reason. So a really nice dive by P1. Gets a 2-for-1. They're still on the back foot.
No, Zig's about to go in, but he gets dismounted from Skarl. They lock down a cocoon onto Santorin, but MikeYeung goes up. MikeYeung goes down. He's almost goes down to a boomerang blade there from Rikara. Ryu has to split off to one side of the map while the rest of his team runs away back towards their base. They do have double Ocean Drakes to keep themselves healthy for now, but we'll see if GoldCoin United, with about a minute and a half left on this Baron buff, will knock down the second inner tower of the mid lane. Looks like they win.
Good objective grab there. Now up to 4 turrets. The gold lead all the way up to 3,500 and about. But a nice play by P1 overall, because it does take some Baron buffs off the map. It slows GCU down from being able to set up any sort of siege situation. And overall, a great play out of P1. Taking another look at it here, just sitting on top of a pink ward, Fly up in the mid lane, just start off onto him, gets saved by Whyin, and then in comes the Cosmic Radiance, be able to protect him under this turret. That shockwave completely negated, one of the things I said you have to worry about. Solo completes the teleport, he's under the turret alone now, he goes down, Fly was able to get out, but wasn't able to actually deter that turret dive at all from happening.
A really cool interaction between the skins that Taric has, being able to the sunglasses roll down as the charge comes in from Kled, and there's no way to stop that.
Cool guys don't look at engages.
Maybe that's why P1 didn't do it until that point. They weren't looking for the engages, but they found one there. GCU, though, they have a talisman of Essential of their own. They're just rotating down to the bottom side of the map where Solo's been split pushing. They're going to get yet another tower.
P1 getting a little bit too cute there. Multiple people were camping a brush in the river. P1 has pressure down the bot side, though. Just rotates through the jungle, not the river at all, and they grab another turret here.
And we see the culling having to be used by Ryu just to pretty much wave clear at this point in time. So now it's about a 4,000 gold advantage for Goldcoin United. They were down maybe 1,000 or 2,000 gold leading up to that Baron fight. Now with about 10 seconds left on the Baron buff, we'll have to see. I mean, they've gotten themselves solidly in control. I can't even talk at this point. Completely in control of this game, which is exactly what happened in game number 3. They were able to take control of the later stages of the game. They had a superior teamfight composition to win.
And there's another Infernal Dragon coming up in about 20 seconds. If GCU is able to grab this one, P1 will have a super hard time team fighting later on in the game, as if it's not hard enough already. So you can expect them to try and contest this, even though they are down about 4,000 gold at this point in the game.
Hey, that's about how much the Baron power play was.
Hey!
Changing gold differential exactly equal to that Baron power play. It goes to show how close this game had been being played between both of these teams, despite P1, you know, in the series, I'm going to say historically, but in the series previously being the ones to get those early game gold advantages.
You see now, at least they have some tanks. It's a little bit easier for them to walk up in this situation. They have a Kled, they have a Taric, but they're not able to get over to contest that Infernal Dragon, just taken down by Rikara.
Well, they want the tower, but Arrow's not going to be able to get it. He got jumped on by Santorin, has to jump away, but the explosive charge will finish the deal. Zig, though, going to get dismounted, has to try to flash away. Cosmic Radiance won't save Kled, but it does keep the rest of P1 alive. Solo's going to be channeling the San United. Nice across the entire team. 3 kills, 4 kills picked up. A quadra-kill goes to Fly, and he says he doesn't want to be the only mid laner to be suffering a pentakill. They're chasing down onto Ryu. The hook is there. Pentakill for Fly!
A huge play out of GCU there. P1 was trying to punish the Dragon take for a turret. They get caught out of position, and Xpecial is just too slow on the Taric ultimate. As Zig is able to be killed off before it finishes completing, GCU waits it out very intelligently before re-engaging and acing them. Pentakill and winning game number 4.
There's things that come in 5s. There's pentakills and this series, Mark. Goldcoin United are going to tie it up at 2 games apiece and force a final game 5 against P1.
Story of the game for me, a couple things. One, Fly getting his Orianna, one of his best champions here, showing why he is so good on this pick, able to win. And then the other thing, Whyin coming in, I mean, you got to think back to how GCU really took control of this game. It was a pick that was started by a nasty flash hook out of Whyin, and then once again there in the team fight, you see another flash hook onto Arrow to make sure that he does not get away in that team fight, and they are going to be able to win the game off that victory.
8, 1, and 5 for the Orianna coming out from Fly. So if that was going to be, you know, like if there was one thing that you could look at that in the entire game and be like, what was the thing that maybe P1 should have taken away in the picks and bans phase? The Orianna was definitely it.
I mean, it's tough to say because over on red side, you have to ban away a couple of things. Well, maybe not, because they're banning the Sejuani, and they've been doing it multiple times this game, or this series, excuse me. And it's one of the things that, yes, it's very scary if you're trying to play these aggressive team comps that they get a bunch of powerful tanks. But if you look at in terms of game impact, are you more scared of Santorin's Sejuani, or are you more scared of Fly's Orianna? And I think now that you bring it up, on red side, it probably is a better ban in that regard. So yes, you're scared of them getting Kallistas and Caitlyn's and things like that, but you know, GCU has shown that they will ban Caitlyn on blue side, as they've done both times. So it's one of those things where I think P1 has a lot to look at in the drafts, both in terms of what they are picking and what they're giving through to GCU.
That's very true. And for a deeper dive and look into how GCU tied up that series, let's send it back over to Degon and the analysts.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. And guys, we've got ourselves a series, another Game 5 for Goldcoin United.
Oh man, they need to be able to be clutch in Game 5s, because we saw them last promotion tournament not clutch out those Game 5s, but now when you're down 2-0, we're like, man, Liquid smashed them. LCS teams are clearly just on another level, but Goldcoin United needs to be that new face.
I mean, they've been the victim of reverse sweeps. Now their turn.
Yeah, pretty much.
So to go ahead and kick us off, let's go ahead and take a look at that pentakill here at the end for Fly. Fly kind of popping off here on the Orianna.
Yeah, this fight was actually very well played by Santorin. It was a bit of an ugly engage, but this ultimate, then they disengage off of the Ori ultimate as the shockwave hit right before the Taric ultimate hits, and he goes back in for a double knockup. Whyin gets a huge hook towards the end, and I mean, somehow he managed to get all 5 last hits with Orianna because Sivir boomerangs were flying everywhere, and the whole team did a lot of damage. Nice one.
Incredibly impressive, as you said, by the front line as well, setting up those damage dealers. And Orianna actually getting that revenge pentakill. So now we're set up for who's going to get the 3rd pentakill of the series and actually take it.
Well, let's take a step back and take a look at the team compositions here. And both teams seem poised to scale late. They were okay with playing a slow game, and this was a very slow game.
Yeah, we were kind of thinking during the draft phase, oh man, they didn't first pick Trist.
Right.
What's going to happen? Trist is so good in this series here. But then when you look at the construction of the whole team composition, there's a lack of front line for Phoenix1, right? They have the double AD carries with Taric that has a little bit of delay, but you saw the front line play in that last fight was pretty huge from FLICKR. I don't think any of these team comps were like super flawed for any reason, but when you do scale late, I think the better front line usually wins.
I feel like Taric and Kled is a good front line.
It's good. It's not as good as Shen.
If you combo those ults, which they did one time.
Right, down the mid lane.
One time.
Yeah. And it's basically guaranteed engage plus invulnerability. But yeah, as you said, I think the team fight and a lot of the zoning basically and the setup from Santorin was a reason why those ults of the front line for Phoenix1 were not as impactful in that fight. You know, the disengage during Taric ultimate is something that's hard to pull off, but they were able to do it.
Yeah, Cataclysm going ahead and putting down that barrier that prevented them. One of the few team fights, though, that we did get a look at was the Baron fight at 28 minutes. Goldcoin United going 3 for 1. And how about this for an introduction for Whyin? Welcome to the big stage.
Why is he in? Oh, that's why. We were curious why they would put him in for Mad Life, and the game was very slow. Pretty much up until this point, they were down about 2,000 gold, but had been slowly gaining vision control back from the game. They get a pick, and they immediately try and extend on that, eventually just going back to the Baron, knowing that the mid laner is dead for the other team, knowing they're going to be able to win a team fight. And I think the whole time the plan was to pull off Baron for a fight if MikeYeung was going to go in for a steal, and to do just that.
Yeah, exactly. You have to have that clarity going into it. It seemed like everybody was on the same page this time around. These decisive, Baron plays have what, this is what's decided the games in this series, and they completely look different in this game, right? The chase down's very easy afterwards. They have Sivir. It's a fun little blast cone, but unnecessary, and they're able to get down the Baron afterwards as well. Definitely the, kind of preparing going into these objectives looked like it helped them out a lot.
Yeah, we talk about how Goldcoin United is slow to set up plays, but they're trying to emulate a Korean team more than anyone else in the Challenger Series was. And if you're clear with your communication, sometimes that works, right? Their team fights here were actually fairly clean. It was very slow as far as the game was progressing, but if Phoenix1 isn't going to make plays on them, this whole just get good team fights towards the end of the game can work for them.
Speaking of making plays, I just want to reiterate how good that hook was. Yeah. I love going for the flash hook. If you're in Fog of War and they can't see you flash hook, then you have such a higher chance of making it happen, right? In solo queue, you always have these guys, they go for the flash hook, in lane or something, or like, when they have vision of you, then they're expecting you to hook and they can go for a dodge, but if they don't have vision on you, you have a much higher chance, and it comes up as a huge critical play.
Yeah, and Whyinn's one of those players that's been in the Challenger Series for quite some time, or in the Challenger area, the amateur scene for quite some time, and was able to make a big play when his team needed it, and, that ended up getting them the win. That play there got them the win. Yeah,
it's still going to be perplexing. They have Mad Life on the team, and they'd won Game 3, so the sub in to play Thresh, of all things, so I really want to know if Whyin plays Game 5 or if Mad Life plays Game 5.
You won't have to wait long, buddy.
We're going to find out. Although, even when we came back, I wasn't sure because Mad Life was standing right behind him. We're like, is he doing his runes for him?
He's translating.
We weren't sure,
that's what it was. That's Rikara was a little too busy to translate. Let's look at the side of Phoenix1. Now, Phoenix1, 2-0. Thought they were going to go ahead and get out, go get dinner later. Now, they're down 2-2, or they're tied 2-2, dropping 2 games in a row. What do they have to do to get themselves back in, Kobe?
I mean, do they still get dinner if they don't win?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be dinner time. Otherwise,
it's going to be my coaching strategy. Only winners get dinner.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure if you want to go with the early game composition anymore. If you're unsure as far as the late game shot calling right there. So I actually think that they should continue with it. I've decided in these last 3 seconds, because that has been the strength of this team, right? Yeah. Play early game, snowball with MikeYeung maybe. He's been focusing pretty heavily on jungle farm, maybe look for more aggressive, ganks and try and snowball the laners a bit quicker.
He's been shutting down Santorin. He's been tracking Santorin. He's been taking Santorin's jungle camps. But he needs to actually get his laners.
I mean, he's doing a lot, but yeah, maybe you want to
do even more.
Yeah, do even more. And one thing to note here, Whyin, with that one play, bought himself a little bit more time to play. He's going to be the support in Game 5. Meet us back in just a few moments to see if Goldcoin United or Phoenix1 will claim victory and move on in the promotion tournament. Don't touch that browser.
Stand United even gets used, and MikeYeung was coming up on the opposite side. Ryu wants this kill, though, and they will get first blood. Goes over to the Elise.
On Jarvan. Doing. Now move down. Okay, I can cancel him. Yeah, I can get him. I'm going to okay. Nice. Going. No flash. Shen no flash. Yeah. Hey. We go Shen. Watch Ori no ball. Ori no ball.
Quadra kill goes to Fly, and he says he doesn't want to be the only mid laner to be suffering a pentakill. They're chasing down onto Ryu. The hook is there. Pentakill for Fly.